Good morning, everyone. We divided the presentations between me and Dr. Pacquiao. I'll do the first part, and Dr. Pacquiao will present the GDI initiative. And I'd like to inform you that the presentation that you are about to see is a sanitized version. A sanitized version of a presentation of the paper of 4 authors. His names appears there. Sanitized in the sense that we tried to read the presentation with jargon that may throw some people off into a wandering spiral. We are tackling, we thought that we were tackling a gut issue, and we thought that maybe it would be that we need to reach as many people as possible rather than just a small circle of like-minded economists. I had to tell you this, that one time I did this, an important person in the audience asked us, where are the standard errors? How are we supposed to tell that your estimates are significant or not? So I hope there's none today. If you're looking for the standard errors, I'd like to invite you to download the full paper which is available on the website. Okay? Actually, there's also a presentation of Dr. Lansona, which is this is an investigative paper of several efforts of these people. And I hope we tell you the story that we want. This has been used in the presentations of the DPRM in regional fora, because the DPRM has been, since last year, has been, PIDS made it a point to go to the regions to present the theme issues for the year. Okay, so our objectives for this paper is to clarify the job issue and analyze the impact of the minimum wage on the welfare of the disadvantaged. We don't want to be cavalier about doing this, because we have invited people like Mr. Canilet from the Federation of Free Workers, trying to convince them that our analysis is serious as well as their analysis. So we like to find ways in which the labor regulations and practices more beneficial for the poor and jobless. So basically, we're trying to tackle an issue that has been with us for quite some time. Okay, so we try to provide the context of how the JEDI initiative was crafted, what's behind it, and a summary of the major piece of work that's done under this paper, which is the impact of the minimum wage and the JEDI initiative as a conclusion and recommendations. Okay, so we are not just talking about jobs per se, but we also the jobs is just a means for living. So it's basically a jobs poverty nexus that we are looking at. So if you're, for instance, if your real wage goes down, and plus you have a lot of surplus labor, then you have high and persistent poverty. Basically, what we are trying to also to explain is, why do we have, besides saying that the jobs growth is not as fast as it should be, why is there a persistence in poverty? The central issue that we are saying is that while the common culprit that people point at is being jobless, the other thing that we'd like to point out is there are actually a lot of unproductive workers below those people who have no work at all, or working and earning below subsistence. This is the graph that we'd like to show you. Basically, what we did here is to illustrate the point that the ones that we are usually pointing at as people, as the jobs issue, is actually a very small proportion. This is just the blue portion and top. These are the unemployed, people who have no work. Okay, so what we are saying is that there are a lot of people, there's about 13 million of them. This is just about 7% of the labor force. So this one is called fully employed below they are fully employed but earning below subsistence. These are people, this is the violet bars. The green bars are underemployed, earning above subsistence. So the people who still want to work for whatever reason, but already earning above subsistence. Of course, we know that we need more than food. So that's a green bar, and a small proportion who are actually underemployed and earning below subsistence. So these are the, so what we are trying to show here is that this problem has not been going down. It's rising actually over the years. So even if we said that our unemployment rates are flat about 6–7%, this one is actually, there are a lot of people who are working or either earning below subsistence or fully employed but still earning below subsistence. That, we think, is also a very important part of the jobs challenge. If we want to provide, we just don't want to provide work for the unemployed, but we want to want people to have work who can earn them enough to feed themselves. And the other thing that we would like to tell you is that if you just focus on unemployed, being unemployed is actually openly unemployed. It's not as simple as being jobless. If you look at the data, a large proportion of them are not actually poor, contrary to most common belief. That's why I think Dr. Noel, the Joss of School of Economics, said that you don't solve the problem by just giving people jobs, because actually there are a lot of people who have already jobs, but their earning is below subsistence, for instance. So, one, the unemployed, if you just concentrate on the unemployed, a large proportion of them are not poor, and those who are actually not poor are openly unemployed, high income and high education. These are college graduates who are waiting for the right kind of jobs. So these people are not poor because they can afford not to be having jobs for some time. But for the poor, it's a different story. For the poor, it's actually survival. You have a very low unemployment rates because they can afford to be poor. They can afford to be unemployed. Sorry. So the other thing is the jobless growth issue is marred by this problem. So maybe we're saying that there's no very strong relationship between our growth and employment rates, because when we look at employment, it's basically people who have no jobs. But if you look at this graph, that is a very small proportion of the jobs issue, then you'll have a little bit understand why even 7% growth doesn't make a dent in the unemployed. There are a lot of people who are actually lining up for better jobs, not just for jobs, but better jobs. So we said that maybe there's a issue of measurement errors or some whatever errors that will in the relationship between growth, and besides things that maybe people, because of their higher income, people can afford more to stay a little bit longer at being unemployed. So that's basically one thing that we have to realize. The unemployed are not poor people. Many of them are actually college graduates. A large portion. Okay, so that's the other thing. So, what are our primary tools for addressing this problem? One, of course, is the minimum wage and labor protection regulations. We have to keep jobs by having very strict implementations of labor regulations, one of which is the minimum wage. The other one is, of course, general productivity increase, which we say is a better way of doing things. Whatever is reorganizing production, for instance, so that more productive. The other one is investment in human capital. It consists of education, nutrition, and training. The last one that's the favorite of many people is livelihood programs. So the question really is, as Dr. Shigeru has mentioned, most of these are good intentions. But how are they in terms of their real impact? So it depends. It's really based on data. So we can only, as I said, one book is said that good intentions are not enough. You have to validate it with data. So basically, that's what we did, and did some serious analysis of the minimum wage regulations. So the basic objectives as the labor regulation is, of course, to protect the workers against abuses of employers and increase their bargaining power. So you have minimum wage, you have the 6 months regulation for those who are not 6 months regularization law, and you have very flexibilities in how you can just you can't just hire or fire a worker. So we know that these regulations are costly and inconvenience a lot. So the prolonged conflict resolution process is costing both the employers and the workers. We are trying to argue that the tripartite, because of this, that we have a growing masses of people who are actually, we call them underproductive workers. That means that maybe we are failing to represent them in the discourse of society. That's why maybe we have a tripartite system now. Maybe we need their own representative to argue for themselves in those discussions. So the other one is we have confusing regulations, and we already said this, that the regulations have been found to be have positive and negative effects. So it really remains to show what data is saying. Okay, so what we are saying to simplify is that we are challenging the idea that minimum wage is always helpful. It's not always helpful for the common people. We found a clear evidence, for instance, that there is a fast rising minimum wage will have a negative impact on household income and poverty incidence using the 80s panel data. We also find, I think, Bush Rasuna will present us that piece of analysis where the employment of enterprises are affected negatively, and the employment of individual workers, individual disadvantaged workers are also affected negatively, including the work hours using LSS data. So these are the statements. As I've said, these statements have analysis behind them. If you want the analysis, please look at the paper. But the minimum wage reduces the demand for workers, particularly in small firms. It's a piece of work done by Dr. Lansona, which we'll present later. The other one is that the minimum wage decreases the chances of disadvantaged workers like young, female, and low-educated and experienced from being hired. That's the other result that we find. And the other one is the rise in the minimum results in lower household income. Actually, from our measurement, that's 20% reduction based on our computation. So one of the things that we try to explain now, because we have been asked this, is how will it happen that a high minimum wage lower income? These are the two mechanisms we have identified that can actually cause remember, household income is the total of all workers in a household. So we said that it can, if the minimum wage lowers, the average number of working age population will be higher. So we have already shown that it lowers the job generation. So that's the impact of that. The other thing is, of course, even if all people, the same number of people are still working, we also find that the higher minimum wage lowers the average number of hours worked by people who are working. So that means if you lower your hours and you're paid by the hours, almost maybe you're paid by the hours and in this category, then you will have a negative impact on income. So that's how we explain it to ourselves and to people who ask about us how could somewhat this thing happen. Okay. So the other thing that we would like to also stress that that investments in human capital is still a very we can hear we hear from a lot of people who are saying that maybe Filipinos are already over-educated. So that's the we already said that is not borne out by data. We've done an estimations of rate of return analysis on education, and we are still in about year 20s. 20%, which is an investment that earns you 20%. Is a very good investment. For instance, that has been used as the high rates of return from between elementary education and high school has been used to extend the CCT program for the work of Dr. Reyes and her team, and which used in our analysis as well. So that's the one reason. We also found other people who have studied that there's a rising wage premium. The wage premium is the difference between, let's say, a college graduate and a high school graduate in some of the sectors, which means a rising wage premium means there's the labor market in that sector is actually short of those types of workers. Otherwise, if you have an abundant, the wage premium will go down. But so, although in general you can find a good relationship between wages and education, you'll find that the wage premium rises in many sectors, especially in fast-growing sectors in the services sector. Of course, improved nutrition is very important for productivity. So how about training programs? Training programs globally have mixed effects. So we have been saying that training programs are important. We should be careful how to design it because it has failed in many areas. And the one thing that we found to be consistently good at generating employment is the on-the-job training. The problem is that's a very small or a very thin market in the training market for a simple reason that nobody wants to finance it. On-the-job training, if the firm will not finance it because the trained worker will be pushed by his competitors. The worker might be too low income to pay for it. And lo and behold, government spends a lot on this, on training. But we have to perhaps re-examine how we are spending that money. We know training is good, but how do we do the training is a very important issue as well.